Jess Phillips is arguably one of the worst politicians that Labour has to offer. One of those people who appears to fail upwards. And I want you to bear in mind throughout this video that the reason Jess Phillips keeps failing upwards is because she keeps promising to do things to help out violence against women and girls, which is something that she is constantly campaigning for and talking about in Parliament, which is absolutely fine. I too am against violence against women and girls. However, every time it comes to actually dealing with the problem of violence against women and girls, she seems to be perfectly happy in partaking in actions that do not help anything. She was even openly invited by the previous government to effectively come into the Home Office to actually be a consultant on how exactly dealing with violence against women and girls should be done. But before I get properly into why she should resign, I think we need a bit of background on Jess Phillips when it comes to a certain community in the United Kingdom, and specifically, obviously, in Birmingham Yardley, where she is the MP. So 5 years ago, when LGBT curriculum was a hot topic, I mean it still is to be fair, but when it first became a hot topic, Jess Phillips went to a school where there was an anti-LGBT protest headed up mainly by Muslim parents. Let's take a look at how she handled that.
What I will say to this young man who is leading this particular protest is you are harming the community that I grew up in. You are harming the Muslim community.
Now I think already you're going to be, alarm bells are going to be ringing in your head. Jess Phillips did not grow up in a Muslim community. That is simply not what happened. The reason she is saying that is to, one, say, oh, you're harming the community I grew up in, i.e. this is affecting me and I don't like it and I'm your representative. And then she tries to flip that on, you're harming the Muslim community, which... But the problem is, as we will see quite soon in this video, it doesn't appear that Jess Phillips particularly represents the Muslim community. But as I say, even 5 years ago, Jess Phillips constantly is giving constant ground to the Muslim community, as she names it. And we will see where that leads to.
How come you have not supported the 300 parents who have been protesting here for the last 4 weeks? Where have you been?
I don't agree with the protest.
No, so what you...
I don't agree.
But you,
that
as a
you
member,
get to pick and
no,
choose
but as a member
which
of
equality
no, but as a member
you
of
can and can't have. I'm afraid.
Okay, you have your
our
say.
equality laws protect us all.
Okay.
I want them to protect you, and actually I want to protect the Muslim community.
She's being literally told by a protester, if you want to represent us, you will listen to us about our issues with the LGBT curriculum in classes. To which the Muslim just starts ignoring her, effectively, just saying, okay, you've had your say, I don't care anymore. You disagree with the protest. This guy obviously then got the signal, do not vote for me. And again, 5 years later, that probably will come back to bite her. This is a man who understands that Jess Phillips is lying when she says, I want to protect the Muslim community, insofar as she does not care what they actually have to say. She just wants to put them under this, Marxist, egalitarian blob of a community, which, as we are quite clearly seeing in the images over especially the past day, but also the past week, and even certain images over the past 5 years, that is not what some Muslims in the Muslim community want. Some would say the majority of them. I don't know if I have enough information to say that. But what I do know is that this is what helps cause community tensions. Saying to these people, I don't agree with your protest and I am not going to listen to you. That is not going to help tensions, but this was 5 years ago, so we can see the fruits of attacking them in this way.
I fear that you are damaging the reputation of the Muslim community.
You are damaging.
And I will make sure that
But the behaviour of the school and towards parents is coming across as Islamophobic.
What do you say to that, Jess Phillips?
It's not Islamophobic to think that people can have two mums. How is that Islamophobic?
So the people...
The protesters claimed that 600...
And this is a huge issue with left-wing activists, left-wing Labour MPs, left-wing Tories as well, to be fair. They simply do not understand that even allowing same-sex marriage, same-sex relationships, not only just to be taught in school, but just allowing them by law, they will see that as Islamophobic, they will see that as an attack on their religion, because they see it as so disgusting. And at this point you'd expect Jess Phillips, when she's being told, wow, a whole bunch of Muslim parents are in agreement with this, that's not good, instead of saying, maybe there is a problem here. Maybe I need to have some introspection. Jess Phillips, have some introspection. Honestly, I'm hoping for too much there. Yes, of course, instead of doing that, she just doubles down and says, no, you don't understand, I want equality for everyone. Why don't you want that? And the reason for that is because that is not only an atheistic, but just a complete anti-reality ideology to have. And quite clearly, a lot of these Muslims have a better grip on reality than Jess Phillips does. And when it came to other issues with Muslims causing a bit of a ruckus around schools, I'm of course referring to the Batley and Spen teacher having to go into hiding, who is still in hiding 4 years later. I had a look through Jess Phillips' timeline, absolutely nothing I can see on that issue saying this is bad, which I find pretty amazing. But I suppose to give it the benefit of the doubt, Batley and Spen is in Yorkshire, and obviously Jess Phillips' constituencies in the Midlands, so there might be some rule or other banning her from saying that. However, I say that when Kim Leadbeater was abused on the Batley and Spen campaign trail by anti-LGBT protesters, probably similar to the ones that Jess Phillips was dealing with in the clip we just saw, Jess Phillips said this on Twitter. The man who harassed Kim Leadbeater is not from Batley, he's from Birmingham, and we stood up to him too. So it might even be the same guy from the protest that she was talking to. Solidarity with Kim and the people of Batley, who no doubt, like the people in Birmingham, will fight such hatred, and like the people in Birmingham, they will win. Which I find quite amazing because this was just a couple of months after the Batley and Spen teacher had to go into hiding. So, as much as Jess Phillips has all these platitudes of, oh, I'm sure you'll fight these Islamists, no, they won't. They kowtow to them. And you said absolutely nothing on that either, so when women are directly harassed, typically in the past, she has said something along the lines of, oh, it's very bad when these women are harassed by, well, anti-LGBT activists, I guess you would say, to not have to mention that they are Muslim. But anyway, naturally this story continues. We're going to skip 3 years now to when she won the Birmingham Yardley election less than a month ago at this point. Yes, I need to remind people that chaos has arrived in Britain a mere month after Labour get in. So at first this just seemed like, you know, a lot of people at the count, yes, they were Muslims who were generally in support of the independent Muslim pro-Gaza candidate, cheering out his name because they were expecting him to win, and he didn't. And then Jess Phillips tries to start her speech.
See, we're going to continue with the class that we had during the campaign.
Excuse me.
It's all right.
Now, we'll get into why Jess Phillips said this. I mean, I'm sure most of you already know, especially if you've been keeping up to date with my channel, because Jess Phillips didn't particularly like the behaviour of quite a lot of her political opponents in this particular election.
The election that I have...
Joe, this will be a warning. I will be asking people to leave unless we get this completed.
I will carry on with my speech. I understand that a strong woman standing up to you is met with such reticence.
Yes, also a little bit of, in the business we call this foreshadowing. Jess Phillips simply is not willing to face up to what the problem is. She just constantly defaults to, oh, this is a feminist issue, this is because patriarchy, this is because men, blah, 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 blah.
Anyway, this election has been... Can you throw them out?
I mean, at that point, yeah, Jess just had enough. They got thrown out. She managed to finish her speech, but thinking this is just a male versus female issue, we've had men in the country, Jess, since time immemorial. In fact, a lot of people would argue that it was men that built the country in the first place and kept the country growing and growing and growing and getting better. You know, majority men, obviously. There were some women involved. Right up until, you know, the 21st century. All of a sudden then it appears that, oh, actually men have ruined everything. Now we need women in charge of everything. Even though at the time, and, well, still till now, absolutely every leftist hates every single female PM that we have had in Britain. But I do not go to these people for consistency whatsoever. Anyway, after winning the election, obviously, Jess Phillips was interviewed by many outlets, and I mean, I don't even think I can introduce this very well. Just listen to what she has to say.
Everything was about driving content. So these people weren't ashamed of the way that they were behaving. They were doing it and filming themselves, then putting it on the internet. So when Sadiq Khan came, like sort of men wearing masks, driving past, shouting, I won't say what they were saying because, you know, it's a family show, shouting stuff about Sadiq Khan's mother. And they're not ashamed. They're putting it on the internet to incite other people to do the same.
So first in this interview, that's a fine question. Obviously, she was asked, how do you feel about how this campaign went? Obviously, she answered, not very well. There were people intimidating and threatening my campaign team and me and filming themselves doing it. Not trying to hide the fact that they were committing crimes. Almost as if they don't feel affected by the police in some way. Perhaps because there's some sort of system of policing that puts some people above the others. And these people happen to be on that upper level, a tier I guess we could call it. And then there's people on a second level or tier, as if there's two of them, where they feel more affected by the police, the law, and obviously keeping much more order. Anyway, I won't dwell on that for too long. Carry on, Jess.
Is it sectarian?
It's too simple to say that it's sectarian because, like I say, and people want desperately for me to announce that the people who were shouting at me and barracking me were Muslim men.
Well, yeah, but that's only because it's a basic test of, do you understand what is going on? Do you understand what has just happened to you? And I'm not being funny, but yeah, it was Muslim men doing this, Jess. It is okay to say that.
The fact that they were men is actually quite significant to me.
It's just amazing. I mean, I've covered this before, but it still blows my mind she said this.
The fact that they were Muslim is not significant because the Muslim people in my constituency didn't behave like this. These people were idiots.
This is the problem that Jess feels like she's going to run into. She doesn't seem to be able to realise that she can say that, yes, this was Muslim men that were harassing me and breaking electoral laws, she said in other interviews, and made it the worst election that she has ever experienced. Somehow, despite the fact that I'm sure more men were involved in previous elections that she has been involved in, apparently it's now men that are the issue here. I mean, this is the problem. People can see right through this. Jess Phillips is not a good liar. She has always been god-awful at it, which is why so many people supported Carl for the crass joke he made that he's now apologised for. Because she's a really bad liar and everyone can see it. And it's made worse here, and this, ironically, inflames tensions more. You get the exact opposite result of what you're aiming for. The reason she doesn't want to say, oh, it was Muslim men doing this, is because she doesn't want a situation like we have right now, where we have gangs of anti-Muslims, you know, white British people, whatever, going around feeling like they have a good excuse to target Muslims. That's what she's trying to avoid, and that's, ironically, exactly what she is actually perpetuating by refusing to deal with this issue like an adult.
They didn't do it because they were Muslim. They did it because they were idiots. And they wanted something for themselves.
I mean, even the implication of that, no one has an issue with you saying they didn't do it because they were Muslim, they did it because they were idiots. I do agree, you can have Muslims that are perfectly peaceful, perfectly integrated, do not partake in breaking electoral law, and who want to be a part of the country, but you trying to hide the fact that there is a problem with sections of the Muslim community who have made it hell on earth for you to get elected again, it's not a bad thing to point that out. And ironically, it's going to ease tensions because then people who don't feel listened to will feel listened to. People do understand that it's not all of them, all right? It's okay for you to say not all. We just need you to say it's some. Anyway, once elected into Parliament, Jess Phillips was also invited by Sue Gray, of all people, to be the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls, i.e. she is the person who is in charge of making sure that women and girls are safeguarded and violence against them is minimised, if not eradicated. It's a ridiculous position I don't think should exist, by the way. This should just be part of the Home Office. But anyway, it's what we've got, and Jess Phillips is in that position. Bear that in mind with this next clip.
Situation developing here in Birmingham this evening. We're in Bordesley Green in Birmingham, and you can see behind me there is a gathering and quickly gathering number of people, members of the Muslim community, who've come out here due to organised activity within the community, they say, to protect property. Now, I was speaking earlier to one of the community.
Now, that is a very large mob of Muslim protesters who, according to the tweet that this is from, they were shouting that the media is not welcome and that they were balaclavaed up. This is the type of meetup where if this was absolutely filled to the brim with white people going on about immigration, you'd see riot police everywhere. We saw it all weekend. There's no getting away from it. This ended up happening while this journalist was talking about it.
Free Palestine.
But I think, apologies for the language you're hearing, but
Yeah, Sky News had to cut the feed after this woman was clearly intimidated. These men were doing trigger signs to the camera. This is a direct threat of violence. This is these men saying, get out of here or violence will happen and you will be the victim of it. This was going around absolutely everywhere on Twitter. This was a woman, by the way, who was clearly being intimidated and given a direct threat of violence. Here's what Jess Phillips said. To be clear, all-day rumours have been spread that far-right groups were coming, and it was done entirely to get Muslim people out on the street to drive this content. It is misinformation being spread to create trouble, which is an absolutely, completely, utterly ludicrous thing to say. A completely ludicrous thing to say. Misinformation spread causing a far-right mob, as people like Jess Phillips say. Oh, that's the worst thing in the world. We need to crack down on misinformation. Misinformation caused Muslims to come out and, they're just protecting their community to drive content that makes them look intimidatory. Yeah, that's fine. Just forget that. That's the far right's fault again. It's absolutely unbelievable. A woman has been directly threatened with violence. You, Jess, directly experienced this as well. One of your female assistants on your campaign trail directly suffered violence with her tyres being slashed, and you are playing complete cover for the root cause of it. You are not fit to be in the position, that shouldn't exist by the way, of being the safeguarder of the country of violence against women and girls. You are not fit for purpose there. I don't even think you should be an MP, but unfortunately you've been voted in, so there's not a lot we can do about that. Anyway, because people were taking this as apologia for these people being violent thugs, Jess Phillips was directly asked, do you think that gives them the right to assemble on the street all tooled up? To which Jess Phillips thankfully says, nope, and anyone committing criminality should face the law. Yes, they should, but they are not, are they, Jess? But it's important that the facts of why people are congregating... Okay, again, these were completely ignored when it came to Southport and everywhere else in the UK over the weekend, and how it is done on purpose in order to keep driving this dissent to create content. It is very organised and very ugly. It's quite incredible, isn't it? When protesters... I mean, to be fair, they have been rioting over the weekend, but when these people are told that far-right riots are going to come in the area, okay, yep, they get up, they mask up, and they weapon up. The whole idea of the strategy that Starmer has been having along with Yvette Cooper is that we are going to let them know that they are as protected as possible. Now, a big reason for that is that they don't want scenes like this getting out, but this is the problem. Muslims also don't think that the police are going to protect them. Part of the reason for that is because they know that the police, because we've all seen it, will run away from danger. You know, they saw the hotels on fire. They saw the shops being smashed up. They do not believe that the police will be able to protect them. Hence, they do this. And the fact they're masking up should ring alarm bells that they are prepared to be criminals on this. Whereas, you think over in America with Kyle Rittenhouse, he didn't feel the need to mask up when shooting people that were going to kill him. You got to think about what the reason for that is, Jess. But again, this is part of the problem that people are having. This is part of the reason people are saying there are two tiers of subject in this country. Far-right people do not get this type of apologia. Muslims get it to a ridiculous degree from what we have seen over the past week and a half. This is not, again, going to help anything. This, like all of Jess Phillips's past attitudes, past statements, past actions, are going to inflame things worse. You cannot have someone inflaming tensions like this in the Home Office or anywhere in government. She needs to be sacked and put on the back benches and frankly ignored for the rest of this Parliament until she's kicked out. Anyway, further on in the day, Jess Phillips said this: I've spoken to police and pub staff at site of violence night. Pub has been visited by lots of lovely communities sending solidarity and are locking up now for the night as usual. Now you might be thinking, wonder what made her say that. That's because she couldn't ignore this.
bit closer.
Yes, this is one of those people that Jess Phillips was describing as, oh, just some of these people that heard the misinformation that the far right were going to come about. Yeah, they just went out and attacked a pub. They went out masked up with weapons, with Palestine flags as you see there, to attack a pub. I mean, it's absolute nonsense to try and say that these people were just trying to defend their community. They were just worried about far right thugs. Because this also happened. There's just a guy in a pub basically saying, what are you doing? Doing nothing violent, just talking to them. I mean, it's hard to tell what he says. But I doubt with a big mob like that, you are effectively saying to them, I wish you all to be deported. And the guy who starts trying to, well, punch him here, you see, he's nowhere near the people he's talking to. He doesn't know what he said. He just wanted to fight. And then he gets crowded and just beat up. Again, this happened in Birmingham. Whether it's in Birmingham Yardley, I'm not entirely sure. But Jess Phillips has commented on this pub. And so she's also talked to the police about this incident as well. Absolutely no news on if anyone was arrested. Absolutely no news on what has happened to the guy who was beat up here, whether he's in hospital or what have you. Just Jess Phillips trying to say, no, absolutely everything's normal. This is as usual stuff. It is not Jess Phillips. We have a huge problem. You are decisively ignoring the problem and trying instead to push it over to your feminist agenda. Well, this is a surefire way to get the paradigm shift that we are going to be seeing over the next few decades in the UK to be accelerated just to the next few weeks. People are fed up of this. People are fed up with MPs trying to beat around the bush, ignore the fact that there is a big glaring problem right in front of them, and the backlash we have seen over the past week is entirely due to the fact that immigration is not being addressed properly. It's being made worse by Labour policy so far. Crime is not being sorted. It's being made worse by Labour policy so far. And we quite clearly have a big sectarian voting bloc in the UK that is now managing to get influence in Parliament. And people do not want that. They never wanted that. And the fact that they are not getting solutions is what is inflaming these tensions. Ignoring it is only going to exacerbate that too. So with all that, Jess Phillips is certainly one of the first people who should be sacked from the government, but it's not going to happen because she is completely on board with what Sir Keir Starmer is doing, who is also making all of these things worse. You can say that the police and get your standing army of riot cops in place. They are not going to be the most effective way of dealing with this. You can jail as many of these people as you want, but the fact of the matter is that the more that people see that they are being used very one-sidedly, the more the two-tier care label sticks, and the more inflamed the tensions become. This is, so far has been one of the worst reactions to an event like this that I have seen. As we can see in Birmingham from the clips I've just showed you, that was just a few of the pics. You know, cars were smashed up, cars were stopped, there was a guy who was pushed into some roadworks and then again surrounded by a mob of masked men. People see all this. You can try and suppress it all you want. That's going to be quite impossible, especially with Elon Musk in charge. And I want a peaceful resolution to all this, and unfortunately I am not seeing that being attained at all by this current government. Jess Phillips seems to be one of the worst people as well for trying to get to that peaceful resolution, so she needs to be one of the first to go. To be clear once again, I am not in favour of the riots. I want everyone who has been rioting on any side of it to be arrested. People who burn the hotel, arrested. People who beat up the poor guy at the pub, arrested. Put in jail for a very, very long time. I do not expect the Labour government to do this, however, unfortunately. So, who knows where it's going to go. Right, anyway, with that is everything I had for you today. So once again, thank you very much for watching. Please join the Worcester Club down below so that you get first access to the stream of the Other Side of the Hill newscast tonight, where obviously we're going to be talking even more about this issue. And of course, as usual, until next time, goodbye.